Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook video about Lilo and Stitch, colorism, a Hawaiian's perspective, that Hawaiian being, of course, me, and of course, this is a response to kind of the recent announcement of the casting for Nani from Disney's live-action adaptation of Lilo and Stitch. If you have not yet seen that, that's the character on the left there, or the person on the left is Sydney, who is Hawaiian or Kanaka Maoli, but is of fairer skin tone, and then on the right is the original Nani character from Lilo and Stitch. So this has been a lot of talk about this past week or so. In fact, like it's been all over the place. Sorry, I'm gonna have to take this up. This just before you this I have to wear these because it's part of being a poor native Hawaiian. I can't afford like actually functioning eyewear for myself. These are actually to help me read, but I'm gonna take them off because I don't think it's helping. Anyways, so this past week there has been a lot of talk about Lilo and Stitch, and so I kind of wanted to just make a little short video or a video about my perspective on that because it's been such a hot topic. And it's important. Whatever I say, this doesn't reflect every Hawaiian's perspective because we're not a monolith. We're not a hive mind. We're not. We don't all think exactly the same thing. There are disagreements within the community. So this is just my perspective. There are things that that are our history and what there's more consensus upon. And a lot of that is misunderstood, but kind of want to just put that at the front. Like this is what I think. And so let's get into it. So I mean, I can't really talk about this. But I'm talking about this exploding thread. So this thread, this thread has got like what is it, 1,000,000 something views already. Anyways, I'm sure there are others, out there, but this is just one that's really blown up this past week. So basically my perspective, if you to sum it up, is as a native Hawaiian, what I'd really like is for Disney to stop displacing us homeless Hawaiians with a $144 million resort for rich foreigners, in collaboration with the illegal U.S. occupation that is still poisoning our water to this very second. And also that's blatant colorism. So that's like, in a nutshell, that's what I think. I'm going to elaborate on that. Obviously that has triggered, elucidated, activated, or caused flame wars. Well, that's like a 20-year-old phrase. It's caused mass back and forth in the replies with much varying levels of ignorance, educatedness, and a lot of bad faith. But a lot of it is good faith, but just ignorance. And so I don't have time to go through all of them. To be honest, there's so many. But I think like some of the key things that people should know, I think that people don't know, is maybe what we'll kind of focus on. So I mean, one of the things is when we talk about colorism, like one of the things people kept on saying or bringing up is, but Sydney, the actress being cast as Nani, but Sydney is Native Hawaiian though. So what's the problem, right? And okay, so colorism, and this is the thing. Just one key takeaway is, why do people suddenly forget how to do research, or look things up, or investigate before speaking, right? The second basically all the time. I would argue it's a Western phenomenon. This is not a thing that when I interact with our non-Western friends and relatives, we don't encounter that. But in the United States, certainly, and in much of that world, the colonizer world, let's say, there's a tendency to just start talking from a place of ignorance, to start talk without knowing anything about a topic. Just start saying what sounds good that pops into your head. Like, well, that's terrible because she's not a Hawaiian, right? And even sometimes I would say a lot of the people that are like Americanized people who might not even be necessarily white, they just start talking, and then a lot of the arguments in this discussion about the colorism stem from somebody just like making a baseless accusation, making a ridiculous uninformed comment, and then somebody else responding to that, and then the other person like doubling, tripling, quadrupling, quintupling down about, no, I didn't mean that, but this, well, I knew that, or something. And it's like, that's most of, I would argue that's actually most of Western culture, which is valueless in that sense. I mean, entertainment value, but not so much valueless in terms of actually being educated and informed and making good decisions. But anyways, so one of the problems that people are encountering is like, she's a Hawaiian, so it's fine. Or there's never been, well, one of them is, sometimes it's from a very terrible place, but it's in like, it's informed, like race, like fascists or some very right-wing person will be like, well, we just shouldn't have any brown faces in any movies, right? And that's like the right-wing response, and that's like, and that's wokeism. So you can tell because they start using, that's wokeist, that's SJWist, or somebody who has been pulled into the right, it starts using that language. Or there's too many black and brown faces all over the place. This is a SJW wokester agenda, or I saw some of those. That's one thing. That's just, they're just trying to move culture into fascism, but they're all, we'll see if they can. I don't think they're gonna win that. But then there's other people that are like, but she's Native Hawaiian, and so that's not colorist. Okay, so there's a very simple thing that people can do. Okay, what you can do is this magical thing. If you typed in that comment, you have the ability to move your fingers, hands, use some kind of voice to text, or braille interface, some kind of interface to enter text into your search engine of choice. Talk to your AI friend ChatGPT. Ask ChatGPT, what is colorism? Okay, but people lose this ability in the Western world. They don't know how to investigate before speaking, as Uncle Ho Chi Minh would say. But anyways, colorism is prejudice or discrimination against individuals. I mean, this is just genericdictionary.com definition. While your tech company is still functioning, before the US dollar collapses, you might want to use them, and all of their tech companies and all your companies with it. Use that tech company's ability to provide you with basic information. Discrimination against individuals with a dark skin tone, typically among people of the same ethnic or racial group. So, for example, like this is more complicated than you can just get it from dictionary.com, but you get the idea, right? Colorism within the black community has been a serious emotional and psychological battle. So within the black community, right, you can have people that are fairer skin and darker skin, right? And so discrimination within a group of the black community, let's say, or the Hawaiian community, let's say, or even within like an Asian community, or Hispanic community or indigenous community, right? This is brought up during Reservation Dogs season, most recent, and has been brought up before, which is that why are the fairer, lighter skin, like literally the skin tone is lighter. The ethnicity is an indigenous person from Turtle Island, or a native of what's called North America. But then the people with the very light skin tones, and often sometimes it includes things like the facial features being like thinner noses, eye shapes that look more European, but the skin tone certainly, right? So being within an important distinction is that being in an ethnic group, right? And being in an ethnic group like Native Hawaiian, like, I don't know, Cherokee, like, an African people in Africa, or, diaspora, African or black community. So being in an ethnic group is not the same thing as a skin tone. But this is, and part of the problem why people don't understand this, and that's actually, I would argue, that's actually the majority of people's ridiculous comments on this thing, right? I mean, a lot of people are saying the positive thing, like this is another Native Hawaiian just like confirming what I'm saying, basically echoing what I'm saying. And then you have, I don't really want to click on the replies because I don't want to give them any screen time, but let's just choose a random one. I don't know. um, you know, uh, you know, uh, 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 okay, I'm not gonna find any, but there's a lot, But basically, but what a lot of the replies to this that were like not very informed are basically like, but she's dark skinned. That's Hawaiian. It's either like she's dark skinned and that's Hawaiian, or it's like, you know, uh, it's some misunderstanding there. But a lot of it has to do with race equating to phenotypes or like race as it's understood and constructed in a really terrible, messed up way for purposes of colonialism and plunder, capitalism, imperialism, etc. for the last several hundred years, right? Certainly in the United States, but not just there, globally, right? Uh, uh, and the conception of your facial shape, like your nose width, right? Your like look at Nani's nose, right? The skin tone, the like just one is animated, one is not, right? But if you look at the skin tone, obviously one is a lot darker. If you look at the nose shape, one is the right picture has a wider nose, and not to say that the Sydney's nose isn't, but it's more Euroized. It's more Euro normative, let's say, but that's not. I'm not trying to insult. It's literally physically in its dimensions, right? And that those differences of physical features, proportions, tones, like levels of melanin, that makes you darker or lighter, hair texture, right? Those are differences that obviously exist in the world, right? You can see them, right? And they existed before colonization. They existed before the colonial era. They existed before, European contact with Hawaii. But they existed before the European and colonial contact with Africa, right? But the way in which the physical differences of of tone, texture, shape, contour, eye color, right? Those kinds of things. The way that the human society, human civilization, like related to those, right, was different. It was altered when colonialism happened, and then whiteness was privileged, right? Lighter skin tone, right, was privileged above the darker skin tone, and also those external phenotypical like characteristics became equated with entire peoples and race, as was defined as this kind of hierarchy, right, under European, really very much bogus, sometimes it's called social Darwinism, like theories of phrenology, etc. And it's a long history. I can't go through all of that right now. But basically, the definitions of what is a race is the definitions of what was called race, right, became to dominate the thinking of certainly the European colonial colonizer-led world. And why would they do that? Well, because it benefits, a handful of people, especially the wealthiest of European people, like the royalty in the British monarchy, like the wealthy French, right, to colonize, right, and it does benefit all the Europeans, even the not wealthy and not royal, right. The average French person has been vastly more resourced, better off, with a longer life expectancy than the average African person for a long time. Now that's beginning to change, but that's because of the process of undoing the colonial era, right? But the race construction was important to separate the European from the African, and the European from the Asian, the European from the Pacific Islander, the European from the indigenous Turtle Island or indigenous American person, so that they could maintain the extraction of wealth, resources, enslavement, right, genocide, plunder, all the most horrible things that you should know about. A lot of people want to forget, but but the race construction, right, is the racial construction is not the same as the ethnicity of the people. So the language that the people speak, the culture, history, right? So as a Native Hawaiian, right, or Kanaka Maoris, we call ourselves internally. I use the word Hawaiian because I'm speaking to an international audience, but for the Native, our people, the Lahui, we call we have a shared language, you have a shared culture, we have shared songs and dance and history and all of these things. And there are peoples in Europe as well that have shared history and culture. That Germanic peoples. There are a variety of different peoples there. There are peoples in Asia, right? There are actually 56 ethnic groups in China, just as one example. And there's many languages and cultures, and they also have a universal inter nation they have a trading language like the Mandarin that goes between, but they also have their individual 56 separate histories, languages, and cultures, food, cuisine styles, etc., clothing patterns, colors, holidays, and those kinds of things internally. Turtle Island. I mean, anyway, so you see what I'm saying. So that makes the ethnicity. The ethnicity is not the same, right? So the as like Native Hawaiians, we have our hula festivals. We have our in Lilo and Stitch, right? If you look at the original Lilo and Stitch, just as an example, right? In Lilo and Stitch, they're practicing hula. Hula is part of the nation, right, or the ethnicity of Hawaii's traditions, right? And so let me see if I can find the hula. And so and in the hula class, right? In the hula class, there are people of, and not every single one of the people is in a hula class is necessarily Kanaka Maoli or a Native Hawaiian person, right? And it gets complicated, but you can have different Hawaiians, right, of different skin tones. There, even before the Europeans encountered Hawaii with Captain Cook, etc., in the 1700s, the Spanish whaling ships, there were different skin tones and other face shapes, hair textures of Hawaiians, because Hawaiians, we're part of the I'm trying to keep this without spiraling too far out, because I want to kind of like get the point across. But we Austronesian peoples, we traveled basically across the entire Earth's surface, nearly the entire Earth's surface. From we sailed ships tens of thousands of miles from Africa. We have historical archaeological evidence. We were in Madagascar, to Central Asia. I mean, the South Asia, the Indian Ocean. We came through, all of the Pacific, which is 1/3 of the Earth's surface, and all the way down to Rapa Nui. There's evidence that we're in the, encountered and interacted with North and South America, etc. So basically, we touch basically every continent. And also, we had interactions with a wide variety of peoples, so we have a wide variety of different types of phenotypes. So we have like very dark Hawaiians. There's medium tone Hawaiian. There's very light Hawaiians. There's Hawaiians that look more Asian. Some of them that look, more like an African person. And so these, and there's lots of, in every, that's not just a thing that Hawaiians have. There's also a characteristic of a lot of different peoples, like in Turtle Island and around the world, right? But the European classification of race, which is about what you're, just what you look like. You're black because your nose is like this and your hair is like this. Your skin is this color. That's who you are, is you're black, right? That is like, it's terrible. It's constructed. It's an overlay, and then because you're black, you're not good, and you deserve to be enslaved or hated upon, killed, imprisoned nowadays, all kind of terrible things, right? So, but like that construction kind of like pushed again, it kind of like artificially was pushed over a lot of what and it was forcefully. It forcefully confused billions of people, I think, for the malicious purposes of mass accumulation and maintenance of power of a handful of people in Europe, basically, the wealthiest and the most powerful dynastic peoples, and the collaborators across classes, in Europe, and collaborators in the other countries as well, with the Euro colonial capitalist powers. So. But that doesn't mean that because racial constructions based on this bogus, eugenicist theory of the hierarchy of races, It doesn't mean that the ethnicities went away. You know what I'm saying? And so the Hawaiians we never identify ourselves as Hawaiian because our nose look Hawaiian and our hair look Hawaiian and our skin look Hawaiian, and we have, you know, one half or more blood quantum of Hawaiian that makes us Hawaiian. That's never been a thing that we did. That's not a thing that, as far as my interactions with native people of Turtle Island or North America and South America, as far as my interactions with them go, I can't speak for all of them, but they didn't identify themselves as you're Anishinaabe if your nose looks like this, and if your hair is like straight like this and your eye shape is like this, that makes you an Anishinaabe person. That's not the way, as I understand it. That's not how they identify themselves. And if you have, like, you know, you understand what I'm saying? The bogusness and the illegitimacy and the maliciousness of the Western world, and certainly the United States, comes to the front when you think about it that way, right? A Lakota person, they don't go, well, we have to have pure blood Lakota, and everyone who doesn't have this skin tone that is, you know, and versus our neighboring tribe, right? Or if you look too much like a Blackfoot, then we're gonna wipe you out because of some arbitrary characteristic of how you look, right? That's not a thing that, you know, there are, not to say that there were not problems between peoples and nations and, you know, inside of the nations, but that is not a thing that we did, or, you know, many of these indigenous peoples in the Pacific and in the Americas did. And anyway, so long story short, so Hawaiians did have darker skin, medium tone, lighter skin, different eye color, different hair color, and that was you were known, you were understood as being a Native Hawaiian because you had shared language, you know, the Ololo Hawaii, right, which the United States banned, by the way, to eradicate our culture, like it did in a lot of Native cultures around the world. And so you had the same language, you had shared values, you know, and like heritage, you know, is also a part of that. But, you know, I think some people like overemphasize the blood quantum aspects of things nowadays, and I argue that some of that's a part of the forceful Americanization. But, you know, it was more important, as I understand it, who raised you actually and who nurtured you than who biologically. It was important who biologically, you know, who you descended from in certain sense of who carried you for 9 months and then birthed you. That does matter. But there was a lot of the Hanai system, which is, Hanai is a word in Hawaiian that basically means, you know, it's not the same as adoption because that has, you know, everything is just messed up by the colonial history. But basically, children were cared for because children needed to be cared for, and you know, and a lot of the caring would be done by grandparents. They would be done by people that were not related, right, by blood. They were just people in the community, in the village in Hawaii, or in ahupua'a is another word that is a way that we divide from the mountains to the sea. You know, within your ahupua'a, or within your you know, within your community, if somebody was unable, or it would be better if you were to be cared by a different person for whatever reason, it would happen. So that kind of, and that to this day, that still happens. You know, even my own family, they don't even realize how Hawaiian they are, because they, like, a lot of them were just Hanai'd out. Like, they were living at home, and then they were living with someone else another time. Like my own dad, like, he was living in their house, and then he was living in another house that was a Hawaiian family. And then, you know, and this was like nobody talked about it. It just happened, you know. It wasn't like there was an adoption paper signed, and, you know, it wasn't like wrapped up in all of this racist, because a lot of social work and adoption is about ongoing genocide. Native Hawaiians are the number one most children in foster care. That comes up in Lilo and Stitch as well, and that's a huge problem. But that's the United States genocidal social work and foster system. That's about removing Native children from their parents, separating the parent from the child, so that the cultural transmission of Hawaiian language, history, knowledge, wisdom doesn't continue, and then they become American. That's key to ongoing the United States attempts to eradicate Hawaiian culture. You know how, like, they want to eradicate LGBTQ plus people? Like, a lot of them say that openly. But, you know, they've been trying to eradicate us, and especially LGBTQ plus Native people like myself. Like, I am Mahu, I'm a non-binary person, is approximately what the English word would be. But but basically, So that's a lot of important information for people that if you might not know about Hawaii that relates to what we're talking about. So number one, there were a lot of different skin tones in Hawaiian history, and skin colors, and uh, you know uh, body shapes. They're not necessarily European, but they were like more. There are people in Hawaii that would be looked at globally as looking more European or more Asian or more African in a wide variety, but they're all identified as ethnically and as members of the nation of Hawaii, right? And then but when the West, when the colonial oppression, colonial interaction happened, then things began to be categorized by blood quantum. So like you have X amount of blood, and that gives you X amount of, and blood quantum was constructed. There's a lot of other people's videos and articles and education you can look up for on this topic. But blood quantum was a weapon to divide, disenfranchise, take land from Native Hawaiians, take resources from Native Hawaiians, based on this completely constructed, bogus, Western scientific, biological truth. It's very important because there's a lot of anthropologists that continue this process. There's a lot of Western science that's not really science. But anyways, let me stay on the topic. But so that stuff is bogus, and so as that stuff is damaging, right? That idea that your Hawaiianness comes exactly from only your blood. I mean, obviously, like you can't just come to Hawaii and be like, I am Hawaiian at heart. That doesn't not make you Hawaiian. You can't be. You can't just show up from somewhere else and be like, well, this other Hawaiian person in Hawaii said, oh, you're just like a Hawaiian, and so that gives me the right to go around and just be a Hawaiian now. That is also part of the colonial and imperial oppression of Hawaii, is by trying to take Asian settlers, white settlers from all over, and just go, everyone's Hawaiian now. And that's what Hawaiianness is, being part of the 50th state of Hawaii. Long discussion to have on that one, but so that's also not what it is to be Hawaiian. But importantly, it's like that ethnicity and skin tone are different, right? A non-indigenous person being cast, a person that is not of an ethnicity being cast as an ethnicity is problematic. So, like for example, if the actress being cast as Nani was just a European, like let's just say a Swedish girl from Sweden who became an actress in Hollywood and was being cast as Nani, that would be very, very problematic for multiple reasons. Number one, it'd be it would have the problem of she is not a ethnic Hawaiian at all. Number one, and number two, it's a very light skinned person, so it's colorist and it's colors, and it's also like inappropriate casting on an ethnicity basis. So you see how they're two different things, right? If you hey, what's up, Big Deal? If you were to cast, let's say let's say you had somebody, I'm trying to think of somebody that we could cast who's a very dark skinned native actor. I'm just trying to Okay, I'm just gonna choose a random one. Okay, these are Indian, but let's say Reservation Dogs. Okay, now I'm gonna give a free plug for Reservation Dogs. Okay, now I'm just trying to find a darker skinned native person. Okay, DeFaro Wunatai Bear Small Hill, I believe is Afro-Indigenous, if I'm not mistaken, but it's certainly a darker skinned person, right? Now, do you see, like, if you look at the faces here, now Bobby Lee is I believe Korean. That's not an indigenous. That's an Asian person. That's not a indigenous to Turtle Island person, right? But all of these other people, right? Devery Jacobs, Paulina Alexis, uh, Zahn McLaren, uh, uh, is Elva Guerra, I believe, is indigenous, but anyways. So you see how there's a lot of different skin tones on these people, right? Now they're all Native American or people indigenous to what is often called Turtle Island or Abya or so they're all native peoples, right? But they have a lot of different skin tones. You see that? So and also they're native peoples of different tribes, right? Um, and so there's the native people of Turtle Island. They're not just the Native Americans. They're not just one group. It's kind of if you understand that it's not the same, but it's kind of like calling, well, the British are the same as the French, right? Now, yes, they come from the what's sometimes called the continent of Europe, right? But if you said to a French person, oh, you're British, so that means you like fish and chips. I mean, you could start a war like that, or you certainly could be in a very difficult. You'd be in a very angered situation, right? You could cause very problematic events to happen. But anyways, so number one, these are all different peoples that are indigenous to Turtle Island with different ethnicities, with a lot of different, skin tones, right? That's so and in Reservation Dogs, which is a show that I like a lot, but one of the criticisms, that was brought. I mean, one of the things that has been brought up is that not just Reservation Dogs, but just in shows in general made in U.S. movie industry, in Hollywood, etc., is that there are a lot of Hollywood tends to cast lighter skinned indigenous people, and especially in like leading roles, and less so darker skinned indigenous people. So that's an example of colorism, right, within an ethnicity, right? But it would be it's another thing, right? So for example, let's see, okay, so I mean, here's just some ideas, right? So Henry Brandon in The Searchers, 1953. Burt Lancaster cast as an Apache in Apache as an indigenous person in 1954. Audrey Hepburn in Unforgiven. I mean, so Johnny Depp as the Lone Ranger. Okay, so Johnny Depp is not an indigenous; he's a white person, right? And so when Johnny Depp was cast as the Lone Ranger, right? Cast in the Lone Ranger as Tonto, the Native American character. That's not colorism, right? That is, indigenous erasure, and that is a inappropriate casting of a white person as an indigenous person. So the ethnicity, right, of Johnny Depp is not the ethnicity of the indigenous person, which is its own problem, and that is irrespective of the skin tone of the actor, right? Whereas if you now, it's like, obviously, and this is important too, because some people are going, well, that's racist against, like, if you cast a dark actress, that's racist against white actresses. Which is okay. You don't know what racism is. Okay. There's a lot of just a lot of uninformedness generally in the Western world, in the English speaking world, and a lot of the others. Euro-derived language-speaking worlds and things and countries that are vassals of the United States. So, okay. So, but I yeah. So let's just try to tackle one at a time. So, because one argument was, you can't cast. Oh, a black actress was cast as the formerly white Ariel from The Little Mermaid, right? That's the thing people brought up in this thread, right? About Lilo and Stitch, Sydney Agudong cast as Nani. So in Ariel's casting of The Little Mermaid, right? And there's a lot of reasons why this is a problem, and I can't go read the 50,000 replies to my thread if you want to find out why. But so so one is that the mermaids, they're it's an imagined culture. There have been black mermaids, in different stories historically. The Nani is a native Hawaiian that is a real existing historically and presently existing culture, ethnicity, right? And that makes it different, right? It's, it's kind of like the way that, I mean, it's the difference between, depicting some, completely made up science fictional culture versus depicting, peoples of Africa, right? It's not the same, or depicting actual native peoples of that have a real history in, like, depicting the I don't know, Blackfoot history, right? It's a different thing. And so there's multiple problems with this. Number one is that, so from a, this is what the color. Let me come back to the colorism. I'm trying to unpack this like one at a time. So colorism is just the tendency to value white, lighter skin and more Euro features because of a historical global reality. It's just colonialism and racism and white supremacy is a planetary, multi-century reality that impacts everyone. It impacts light-skinned people. It impacts people in every continent. Even people in like parts of Asia and Africa, look at themselves, devalue themselves because of internalized colorism and internalized white supremacy, right? So this is not like this thing it's everywhere, right? And so in casting and choosing how to depict characters, especially the favorable characters, because and especially as main primary protagonist characters, right? What people are asking for in fighting colorism is to more evenly distribute the main character casting to dark-skinned people and to light-skinned people, and to not just only have light-skinned people, because that's historically what was the case, right? I just, as an example, if you take Star Wars, or if you take Star Wars 4, right, A New Hope, you have white, all main characters, right? Because it was the 19, that's it's white, it's colorist casting, because there's a lot of unaddressed racism and white supremacy and unaddressed colorism in the United States. And it's not that it's now addressed, it's just like we're trying to address it. Now, if you take Star Wars, 7 cast, right? Just as one example, I mean, you have, well, number one, you also have, patriarchy, you have misogyny, which is you don't have women main characters. So you have a women main character, and you also have, somebody who has a very dark skin tone and is, a black person on the left. And then you also have he's a Guatemalan, and he's also, he's a South Central American. I forget what he is exactly, but not Pedro Pascal, the other South Central American popular person. Holly knows, but I'm blanking on his name right now. But you know who I'm talking about. Poe Dameron. Anyways, so my point is that, like, so the you have more diverse casting over time, and so that is I mean, there's racism, and then colorism and racism are not exactly the same, but they are related. And so so to address the colorism is you're seeing people of different tones, not just representation. This is another thing that came out with this, which is that, oh, we already had, somebody said, we had Duka Hanamoku, he was in movies, and so we already have Hawaiian representation, or there's a Hawaiian in a movie somewhere, so that means there's representation. So having a Hawaiian in a movie, but if the Hawaiian is playing like bit parts and like savage tropes, like basically the 6 foot tall version of King Kong that's like coming to steal your white women, which is what Duka Hanamoku, he was a native Hawaiian who was in the Olympics, very, very decorated in the Olympics. But when he was cast in movie, he was cast as these horrible racial stereotypes, bit parts, nothing parts. He was never cast in anything like lead kind of role. James Hong, right? Recently was in Everything Everywhere. James Hong was up on the he's like, when I was in Hollywood for most, because he's almost 100 years old, most of my life, everything I was cast in was bit parts, really just racist. You know, as an Asian person, I was the butt of the joke, right? And nothing parts or really prejudicial. You know, I was an Asian guy made to be laughed at. You know, it's basically what he said, and so only now is you seeing Asians in lead. You only like Simu Liu and Everything Everywhere all at once, where you have Asian people in lead roles in mainstream, very popular, award-winning Hollywood films. Only in the 2020s now do you start to see this, right? And so so having simply representation also, that's another thing, right? Just having representation in the movies, right? So just having a black person, a Native Hawaiian person in movies, an Asian person in a movie, that's also not enough. And I used to talk about this at great length in like about a year and a half ago. And also not just representation visually in the movies, because it depends on what kind of character that person is playing. Are they playing a very not necessarily have to be a hero, but are they playing a very positively represented character, somebody who is, you know, has moral values, is, you know, shown as being, you know, not necessarily attractive, but it's shown as being somebody you want to emulate, right? Are they shown as saving people? They're well loved by other people in the movie. They're shown as a good person. They're shown as a capable, skilled person that, you know, acts in a positive way in the world. Or are they shown as like, you know, bad, incompetent, undesirable, you know, just kind of a charity case that we have to save, right? Or are they shown as capable in the world in and of themselves? And so it's important for the women character to also not just be the damsel, right? But capable of defending herself, capable of having her own agency in the world, the fictional Star Wars world or whatever. And so that, what kind of representation, just having a character in a movie, that's not enough. It has to be like, and not to say that every single protagonist of every single movie has to be black or dark skinned or Asian or Hawaiian or something like that, or it's a bad movie. It's just that like the disproportionate, because white, Caucasian, and fair skinned people make up 10% approximately or less of the planet. You know, and movies are international. You know, this is a reality. So this is part of what the, you know, and even if they weren't international, they still should have representation of all the peoples. Like, and especially for downtrodden ethnic minorities, which Black, Asian, Indigenous people are in places like the West, certainly, they should have more representation just because of a history of oppression and racism to make up for the all of the really bad press, all the really bad racist and colorist pushing of the narrative that these people are bad because they look this way. You know what I'm saying? So it has to counter that. You have to like go, there should be, you know, it really, if anything, there should be an overrepresentation of the non-white and non-light skinned peoples, right? I mean, if you cared about addressing these problems, not that I think the power structures that make up Hollywood and the United States and the Western ruling classes care, who make the decisions about who gets cast, by the way, not that they care to address these problems, because racism and capitalism and colonialism are intertwined, and neo-colonialism are all intertwined. But you know what I'm saying. So when we talk about colorism, it doesn't mean that every character has to be non-white. It just means that like there should be more, you know, diversity of skin tones and ethnicities in the protagonist roles, and also there should be, you know, other bit part white guys. That's kind of why, like, you know, the D&D, it's like the bard. The D&D movie has the bard guy, which is kind of the bit part paid by the white guy, Chris Pine. And you know, and you can tell like there are some, you know, there are some white dude actors who are like down with to go along with that, and like you know, Chris Pine is like one of those people, you know, and then there are other ones that are not, you know, and you know, but it's you know, but it's kind of like, because a certain white dude has always been the leading protagonist character of the biggest films, certainly for the 20th century, right? Certainly for the United States, which was the preeminent superpower for the last, not anymore, but it has been the preeminent superpower for the last many decades. And it's soft power is a lot of how it has maintained its supremacy. It's unjust supremacy, I should add. And a lot of that is through pushing a certain kind of person to the forefront, right? And being the hero, the Clint Eastwood, Harrison. I like a lot of Harrison Ford movies, but Harrison Ford, in the Star Wars, and those people, it's not that very light-skinned white Caucasian men can't be in movies anymore, but it just has to be shared. It has to, the inequality of positive representation has to be more equally shared. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like this distribution of global wealth and resources. It has to be more, justly shared, equitably shared, and that's going to happen because of the multipolar post-U.S. hegemony world that's happening faster than you can set, an Ohio train on fire. But anyways, I don't want to get out of my topic. So when we talk about colorism, it's not like, because we just because somebody said like, you're mad because the Little Mermaid went. People were saying it was great when the Little Mermaid went from white and then was recast as black. But why are you saying it's bad when the darker skinned Nani is being cast as a fair skinned Nani? You're you're wrong, or you're a wokeist or something, right? When somebody is woke in a derogatory way, just immediately you're already just a racist, because anyway, for reasons that I'm not going to get into. But when as I already brought, there's multiple reasons. Number one, mermaids, have their own history of not only being one color. It's not a real nation of mermaiddom. There's no nation of mermaid with a multi-thousand-year history, culture, and language, right? It's a made-up thing, and kind of like elves and dwarves and stuff like that, right? There's not like the elf nation is not gonna like have its entire land and resources taken from them, right? The dwarf society is not going to have their language banned and their water poisoned because people don't care because of erasure of their people. Whereas Native Hawaiians, we are having all those things happen. Our language is being suppressed, our culture is being suppressed, the United States is bombing our land, making us all homeless, etc. So there's a real world impact. That makes a big difference. Number two, having a how many white Disney princesses, just as another example, okay? So 20th century Disney princesses, right? We want to talk about Disney, okay? Let's look at their skin tones, okay? So you have, let's just look at some of these, right? Okay, so Snow White, very fair skin tone Caucasian. Cinderella, very fair skin tone Caucasian. Aurora, same. Ariel, same. Redhead. That's the only difference, but it's very fair skin tone Caucasian, Eurocentric, very thin, very actually unhealthy body type. To push people who natural body type isn't that. It's very damaging for a whole another 6 hours of Silver Spook stream that we can't do right now. Belle, very fair skin Caucasian. Princess Jasmine was one of the first that wasn't a Caucasian person. But not a very dark skin tone person. Pocahontas, medium skin tone, indigenous person, super racist movie. Oh my God. So there's Pocahontas, untrue fictional valorization of European colonialism. It almost would have been better if that movie wasn't even made. Not almost, it shouldn't have been made. But anyways, but that was viewed, you see that, so that's the representation is not necessarily good. But at least it's not a fair skin toned Disney princess. Okay. And you have Mulan. Okay. But if you look at, for most of the 20th century, right? For most of history, the Disney princesses were of a particular tone. Right. And then you get into Frozen, and then you get into, the 21st century, and it's not like there is zero fair skin. There was Tangled, there was Frozen, Elsa, right? The Tangled Disney princess right? Rapunzel is Caucasian and fair skin. And then you have, I can't remember all of them, but then there's others, you have Moana shows up, right? And so that's not a fair skin, but it's a little bit better, right? It's a little bit better. It's still not accurate in terms of the planet, because the planet is 90% not white, right? Or not, and most of that is not very fair skin tone people, right? But I just reading one of Big Teal's comments. Those arms look like they could break. Exactly. I was just talking to Holly. I was like, like we were talking about Megan Thee Stallion. This side note, but Megan Thee Stallion, we're talking about like Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi, and it was like, they're pretty. I mean, they're not thin in terms of their fat amount, and also but they're also like pretty buff in terms of their muscle amount. And so compared to the Disney princesses, who they could break in like a stiff breeze. That's a positive change over the course of the last several decades, I think, because not that it's bad to, if your body is not, your type is naturally thin, because some people are just thinner people, but again, it's about like making that the only kind of body type that you can have and the norm, and anything outside of the very thin, very light, very European nose, eye, hair texture is racist, it's colorist, it's not good, it's false, and it actually hurts a lot of all people. Kind of like transphobia hurts cis women as well as trans women, because now all these cis women are being like interrogated, like as if like they're all, oh, maybe you're not, we have to, oh, I'm clocking you because I can see your forehead is a little, it's like 2 centimeters too big. And similarly, the white supremacy hurts everybody, because you have to live in a world full of racism, bigotry, and it's actually not healthy for your body to be very, 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 very thin. They called it heroin chic in the 90s, and it's actually like it's really bad for your health. It damages your internal organs. Your body is like you're dehydrated. You die earlier, because your body needs a weight to maintain all of its systems. So anyway, but there's a lot of conversations that can be had. I'm gonna try to stick to the topic. But so coming back to Ariel. So because there have been so many Disney princesses that have been of that, and including Ariel, that have been of that skin tone, and a mermaid is one that a mermaid, again, it's not like, it would be a little bit weird if you had Elsa from Frozen, right, or the sisters, right? If you had Elsa from Frozen be an African or very black, very textured hair, and etc., all the phenotype of an African person, it would be a little bit unusual, right? But because Frozen is kind of more is tied in an ethnic and cultural way to, I forget the exact Scandinavian place that Elsa is from, but it has an ethnic and cultural historical reality to it, right? Even though it's a fictional movie. Whereas like the mermaids, the Little Mermaid, Ariel, there's an entire story recently called The Deep, which is a very good book that you should read. It was recommended to me by our friend Saber. But The Deep, the book is about a actual race of African women who were being slave trafficked to the United States, and were thrown off the slave ships, and they created an entire race of African mermaids. So they're all black undersea culture of mermaids that have survived for centuries. And it's a fantasy story that has a very important messages to it. No, this is not The Deep. This is the Jaws. What the hell? The Deep book, mermaid. Yeah. River. It's by River Solomon with W. Diggs, etc. And so yeah, this is the book. But anyway, so long story short, mermaids are a fictional race of beings or mythological, and so it has it has a different and there have been non-white ones, and so it's different from Nani is what I'm trying to say, right? Nani, who is specifically a Native Hawaiian person, and so for Ariel to be recast as a black person is not like it makes it colorist or not colorist. It's not like it makes it bad or good. It's just like we would like to have more positive representation of non-white people, right? And that's a positive thing. That doesn't mean like every single time a movie is made, there has to be never a white person. It just means like it's good that there's more representation. That's positive, right? I got a whole nother take about Disney. I mean, I haven't even got to that one, but that's it's within the matrix, within the, as I like to say, laser tag on the model of the Death Star, within the matrix of the imperial U.S. occupation of Hawaii, and its companies that also have mega resorts in Hawaii, like Disney. Within the United States empire and its horrific war crimes and ongoing planetary destruction, genocide, plunder, and backing of global capitalism, it's Hollywood companies having some black, non-white, darker skinned characters is a positive thing. And so anyways, this is all to address that one argument that's like Nani. People complained about when the White Mermaid became. People cheered when the wokest cheered when the White Mermaid became black, but when the dark-skinned Hawaiian became light, they're upset. That's because they're just racist against white people. That's I heard somebody say that, right? But it's like, it's not like it's just we don't want to get rid of all of Euro and light-skinned people. It's just that we would like a more accurate and more actually reflective of the human population diversity in the positive roles in all entertainment. Okay, so then that's kind of what's happening. That's the colorism aspect of it. And so what else do I want to say about this? Also, very important, the Sydney Agudong, who is she's a person from Kauai. So again, people can just look this stuff up. So this is not about causing hate for her. There's nothing, she doesn't deserve any of that. Okay, so don't go after her. This is not about attacking her specifically. This is not about she wants to have a career in acting and singing, and that's great, and that's fine. This is not like and it's also very important because some people are going, oh, she's a European, and that's very disturbing. I saw some people that had sorry, I'm trying to find the Wikipedia. Some people were attacking her because she's a European playing a Native Hawaiian. This is like people who have leftist, trans, anti-colonial ally, anti-racist and stuff like this in their bio, and then you're attacking her. This is very not good. Some people, I saw somebody kept going and going and going and going and going and going. I don't want to call anybody out because that's not what this is about. And then somebody said, you got to log off. I know that you're gonna read something and you're gonna get educated, and you gotta and then you're gonna come back and feel really bad and ignorant about what you just said. Okay, but just to clear this up, so Sienna Nicole Agudong is an American actress. Okay, this is okay. I'm trying to find the sister. I think this is not her. Wait, is this the one? Or is that? Wait. Who is being cast as? Okay, I think that's I don't know if we have a Wikipedia entry for that. Okay. Okay, here, let's use the IMDb. Okay, so Sydney is an actress, singer, professional songwriter, born and raised on the island of Hawaii. Throughout her life, she performed throughout her life. Performing followed her everywhere, on and off the camera and on the stage. In 2018, she moved to Los Angeles to pursue her passion for acting and singing. She has been a lead or supporting actresses in numerous projects, etc. So, and I swear her Wikipedia, has her Wikipedia disappeared? I swear I was looking at her Wikipedia at one point and then now it's gone. Maybe Disney was like, "Oh, we're gonna go." I don't know. I don't know what the heck is going on with that. But as I recall, she was of, was a Filipino, Hawaiian, and some European descent, right? And so very, very important. Just because she is of some European descent, that does not make you not a native Hawaiian. That doesn't make you not a member of the Kanaka Maoli, the nation of Hawaii. Because that's what I saw some people saying that, right? Again, blood quantum saying, oh, if you are this percentage of Hawaiian, like your great grandma was Hawaiian, but then you had a white great grandfather, and then you had, an Asian mother. Now you're not Hawaiian anymore because you don't meet the, you don't meet the 1/2 Hawaiian or 1/4 Hawaiian blood quantum as established by the United States legal occupation. So this idea that she's not Hawaiian because she's either someone is European in her ancestry or she doesn't have enough percentage of Hawaiian, that is absolutely racist, destructive, bogus, not the way that Native Hawaiians look at our own ethnicity and our own country. That's not how we identify people as whether they are Kanaka Maoli or not. Okay, so that's very important because I saw people arguing that they should know better, or ideally they would talk to Native Hawaiians first before they open their mouth. I even saw, unfortunately, some Hawaiian people arguing against their own people, which is also very saddening. But that's part of colonization. Is colonizers diseducate the indigenous people and force them forcefully Americanize. That's genocide is not just about mass killing. It's about cultural, historical, traditional eradication. It's genocide. You cannot actually call something genocide. There can be very large killings where there's a very big war, many people die, a very big bombing explosion or something, and a lot of people died. That doesn't make it a genocide. What makes it a genocide is the ethnic, cultural eradication component. We're getting rid of this people, this language, this culture. And so the ongoing U.S. attempts to basically forcefully de-Hawaiianize people by the American schooling. My parents are genocide cases. They're Native Hawaiian people. They don't know their own history. They don't know their own culture. My dad identifies as a white man, a white Christian man, and that's part of it, right? That's the genocide, And so when people repeat this stuff, that's like, oh, Hawaiian is just a percentage of your blood on your birth certificate. That is part of the process of wiping out my native indigenous nation. And that the United States knows this and cares about it because the United States accuses countries, right? There's a country, lots of countries, it accuses those countries of culturally eradicating a certain ethnic group, right? Just think about Western news stories for the last 10 years, right? I know there's some audiences, the Global South audiences, be a little bit patient because I'm talking to more Western American audiences right now, right? So I'm being a little bit chill about this. I'm trying to be as chill as possible. But the United States knows that removing language, forcefully educating people away from their culture in a national in a forced imperial nations worldview, narrative, and history to manufacture consent, right? To kill the Indian and save the man. They know this is a thing because this is what they do. They don't tell Americans that they're doing that. They don't tell if they do, they do this soft, rose-tinted brainwashing. Oh, you're doing a good thing by getting rid of Native people. You're helping them, right? You're saving them, right? You're saving the American, right? All those Vietnamese, there's millions of Vietnamese that have an American in them that are dying to get out. This is what they tell. This is the Western. This is the game. This is why America is the most horrific entity in the world, because they're so good at making people think they're doing a good thing when they're not. But the reality is that all of this, and anyways, that's why I gotta really counter this narrative. If it comes up that Sydney, also just to, I don't want anybody to attack or go after Sydney, you know, and certainly not go after and call her she's a fake Hawaiian or not a Hawaiian. That's not what that's about, because and if you see anybody doing such a thing, you know, you got to stop that. Okay, that's actually hurting us. If you go after her, saying that she's not a Hawaiian because she's light skinned or because somebody was European in her ancestry, like there are people that are raised and born and live in Hawaii, including my parents, right? That do things that like are not educated on their own history and culture and past, and that is like very sad, and it's very destructive. It's very frustrating for me, right? I say that I was forcefully Americanized. I went to American schools. I put my hand over my heart, said the Pledge of Allegiance. I didn't learn any of my own history and my own culture till like way later in my life, because the United States is attempting to wipe out Native Hawaiians to this very second, to maintain a leaking gas station and imperial plunder, and to try to make some more wars in Asia. That's why the Indo-Pacific Command is here. Same thing for Guam. Same thing for lots of indigenous people. The United States gives, as Haulani K. Trask said, the United States and the Western colonial world, the U.S. is just the colonizer that was least blown up in World War II. And that's why it's in charge now. But it's really a Euro-colonial way. The United States is a death country. It gives death to Native people. It's trying to kill. It's not just going to go shoot all the Native people, although it does do that as well. Hawaiians are the most per capita murdered by police since the United States occupation. 6 times more likely, Native Hawaiians are the most likely to be killed and imprisoned and having children stolen by CPS since the U.S. occupation. We have the lowest healthy life expectancy of all ethnicities. The United States does give direct death to Native people, but it also gives death to the culture. It gives genocide to Native people, especially Native Hawaiians, for reasons I've already elucidated. So anyway, so that's also, and so because if you understand that the history of Hawaii, you know, this is why it's really difficult, you know, and I want to get into this now, because now we're going to go a little bit deeper into this. So if you just showed up and you're like, you know, I can't handle this level of silver spook truth, you know, now it's going to get a little more real for you. So I'm sorry, but not sorry. So, it's funny because, you know, I talk about Hawaii is a Disneyland-like resort built over our indigenous communities and ancestors' graves, where we're made to do bastardizations of sacred dances in sexy feather headdresses and entertain the rich tourists for starvation wages, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, drinking jet fuel poisoned water. I'm not joking about any of that. But the thing is, when I wrote that sentence, I wasn't even thinking of in terms of Disney Aulani is a literal Disney owned. It's not Disneyland like. It is a Disneyland. Disney Aulani is a Disney resort, literally built over our indigenous communities. Now, and there's other Waikiki, Polynesian Cultural Center, which is owned by rich white guys, right? And so let's just go through some of this. The illegal U.S. occupation of Hawaii. So what is more, you know, so to me, what is, you know, more important than simply having representation? That having less colorism everywhere would be good, right? Not only casting light-skinned people is good, positive thing. But you know what's even better than that would be the end of the illegal U.S. occupation of Hawaii that results in mass sexual exploitation. Hawaii has one of the highest rates of missing persons, most commonly a 15-year-old Native Hawaiian girl, most commonly assaulted and disappeared by a U.S. military man. So they have left us to fend for ourselves. This is the United States continues to poison Native Hawaiians like myself and our children. The U.S. military in particular. They left us to fend for ourselves. They have said our water is safe and unaffected. They told us our water was not on Navy water lines, and many of us trusted that and continue to use the water. This is from about a year ago. In 2021, no, actually every year, but in 2021, there was a major petroleum jet fuel leak of tens of thousands of gallons. You might have heard about it. It has been killing us. Not just that leak, the tens, if not hundreds of leaks of jet fuel. This is just one way that the U.S. military is literally killing Hawaiians, and the United States is literally killing Hawaiians. When they poison our water, they don't tell us. Like my brother has had rashes that look like that on his body. The doctors don't tell you, because the medical pharma, big pharma and big medical industry, these are all, and the U.S. military, these are all interlinked. They're not. If they knew, they wouldn't tell you. They wouldn't tell us, certainly, and they probably wouldn't tell a white U.S. citizen either. But certainly, they don't tell indigenous people when they're dumping jet fuel in the water until it's impossible to deny. And even then, they try to deny it, because there are entire area codes of even the U.S. military personnel base water was smelling like gas stations. And the thing is, right, and this is where the people who benefit from, as I said, the richest and most powerful colonizers, the royalty and the millionaires, right, in Europe have always benefited from this, and Euro settlers. But the masses of the Euro and Euro settler colonial populations also benefit. Not as much, but they do. And you see this because military personnel, even when their own families are being harmed, they hush. Because why? Because the military is paying them a lot of money to commit genocidal wars and needless imperialist wars, and they're all complicit in the poisoning of Hawaiians. So if you're in the military, and if you are Hawaiian in the military, you should absolutely quit. You are not doing anyone a service. You are doing the world a disservice. Your kupuna, your elders are looking down on you in disgust. If you're in the U.S. military, you should immediately get out of that. I mean, I'm sorry that you were brainwashed. Like I already said, the U.S. is the most advanced brainwashing system in the world that makes people who are, in their hearts, they're not terrible people necessarily, but they believe they're doing something good while they're doing something absolutely terrible. And that's how the U.S. has maintained its power post World War II. Before World War II, colonial system was just like mask off. The justification was, well, you're dark skinned and you're not European, so we're justified in enslaving, killing, and stealing from you, and blowing you up in wars because you are just a lesser being. Post World War II, it goes from that colonial to neo-colonial under America, which is that we're saving you by blowing you up and stealing your stuff, enslaving you, taking your money. But and so if you work for the U.S. military of any ethnicity, you are a war criminal. You are terrible. You should immediately quit. You're 5 times more likely to kill yourself in the U.S. military and out of it, because when you realize what you've done. But you're not going to realize that till you've been in the war and you killed children, or maybe you never realize that, or maybe you just live in denial for your whole life. A very common this is there can never be therapy and mental health in the United States, because you're constantly living in perpetual denial, which is one of the key parts of the process of coming through your psychological problems. It's getting past the denial. There can never be an end of the denial. It's only infinite denial. So that's a major problem. We still have that problem. Since the U.S. invaded our sovereign country of Hawaii, the illegal U.S. state of Hawaii tops the U.S. in police killings, disproportionately Pacific Islander. As I said, you're about 6 times more likely to be killed by the police if you're Pacific Islander. The United States tops the world in police murdering, right? The United States is the most incarcerative and the most egregiously, it's really fascist ultimately, but it's certainly the police brutality, police murder. I mean, do we need to talk about that? I feel like that should be common knowledge. But again, the United States is the most in denial, disinformed, brainwashed population in the world. The U.S. Hawaii is by far the number 1 most economically unequal state in the United States. It's worse than L.A., New York, and D.C. by far. I have lots of I just put all of these statistics together, but there's more receipts in other threads. If you want to learn more about all this, I have threads within threads within threads within threads, and Holly is posting some of these. And there's other sources as well that will elucidate and go deeper into all of these topics. And I have become a Patreon and support Native Hawaiians like myself doing this educational work. And you also get access to 1,000+ hours of my content categorized according to the topic at the in the Silver Spook University, which is just like an online repository of everything I've ever done. And also consider supporting Native Hawaiians like myself, because we need support, and your country is literally killing us and making us homeless, which we were for large periods of time, myself and my partner, while working full time. Also, our children, Holly and I have to do extra labor, because if we send our children to school, there's a good chance that the United States will punish our children for speaking Hawaiian, because children are still punished for speaking Hawaiian in school. Did you know that? To this very day, there are multiple receipts, and the United States does not seem like it's going to stop doing that anytime soon. The U.S. Hawaii leads the U.S. in the school to prison pipeline, number one in rounding up children, especially Native Hawaiians, part of the continued U.S. attempt to destroy us and our lifeways, as I brought up. The U.S. banned our Hawaiian language, nearly extinguishing it. Less than 100 children spoke it in the 80s, so that's genocide. Okay, that's cultural genocide. And genocide is always cultural, so it's kind of it is not genocide that involves direct mass killing at that time, but it is genocide. The United States accuses China of this frequently. Kids are still punished for speaking Hawaiian today. My mother's hands were shattered for speaking Hawaiian in school. So part of the reason why my mom believes she is a American Christian lady, not a Hawaiian, and my dad, is because when my mother was in school, if she spoke Hawaiian in the class, because some Hawaiian was spoken at home, if she spoke Hawaiian in the classroom, they would take a rubber hose with a very large metal end, put her hand on the desk. She'd tell this story at like Thanksgiving and like at which is why we're celebrating colonizer holidays, because of genocide and fictional American history, where Native people and white people all got together and we're just so happy. My mother would have her hand put on the desk at the age of 6, and then a very large metal object would fracture her knuckles, break her knuckles, if she spoke Hawaiian. And sometimes she did, and then she learned to never speak Hawaiian again. And if you bring up Hawaiian language, she goes into like a shock response. A European person said, "I made a really cool app that can help your mom learn Hawaiian," and I'm like, "Thank you for trying. You don't understand. You don't really understand. It's not because she has an inability to read a Hawaiian book, speak to another Hawaiian, take a Hawaiian course. It's because she is like at a subconscious level, traumatically Pavlovian, like deeply traumatized by having spoken the Hawaiian language, so much so that she like goes into terror and she like almost runs away screaming. She goes into this complete freak out mode if she thinks that she might get in trouble for learning more about her own culture. Anything really beyond the surface level, fake plastic hula, cellophane lay grass skirt, beyond the acceptable Hawaiianness, which is shaking your butt in a fake grass skirt, like fake Hawaiianness that's for selling overpriced tourist vacations and tacky pineapple juice. That's okay. You can say aloha, you can say mahalo, you can shake your butt and be sexually abused in a hotel. But if you actually want to learn their culture, though, right? You want to speak the authentic Hawaiian language, you want to learn authentic Hawaiian culture, then she freaks out. That's in the, I don't even know how, what do you do? What do you, it's genocide. It's successful genocide. And this was Catholic school. It was public school. It was government school. And it was Mormon school. It was all the schools. So the United States has genocided my mother. You know what I'm saying? So that's one problem of many. You look at this list, okay? That's one of many problems. I don't care. Ultimately, I don't really care about any Disney movies, really. Disney better figure out what it's gonna do when Russian, Chinese, BRICS countries are making bigger, more popular movies like RRR than anything Disney can produce. If Disney doesn't has any non-brain fogged, starving animators and actors in the next 10 years. So I don't care about Disney ultimately. This is more what I give a fuck about. I'm like, I don't want to go down with the ship that Disney is sinking into the Titanic with. I don't want to. Disney is on a Titanic called the United States, and I don't want Hawaii to go down with it. You know what I'm saying? That's more why I don't give a shit about what movie you're gonna make. If you really want my opinion, but also colorism's bad, for sure. Okay, but anyways, U.S. banned the Hawaiian language, extinguished it, and less than 100 kids spoke it. Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders have the highest rate of incarceration in the United States, 4 times whites, the lowest healthy life expectancy. So we live I think we live like 67 to 62 years of healthy life. So we die the soonest. Anyway, I could go off on this forever. I do frequently. Our native, so I'm gonna kind of speed this up. Our native Hawaiian children are also targeted by the U.S. for child removal to prevent parents from passing Hawaiian language, history, and lifeways down to the next generation. CPS is a tool for cultural genocide. This is, and then you have this, Hawaii has the highest concentration of billionaires in the world. The richest men on earth own most of Hawaii, while most of us don't own a single acre of our U.S. illegally occupied home that hasn't yet been bombed into a toxic waste dump by the U.S. military. Some other fun facts I didn't bring up. Hawaii is the highest per acre U.S. military occupation. 25% of all land is owned and bombed and toxified by the U.S. military, more than any state of the United States. Hawaii's not even a real state. That's a whole nother can of worms. Hawaii has the highest concentration of billionaires, most per capita military occupation. The U.S. military personnel presence is higher per capita than any other so-called state of the so-called United States. Mr. Bezos, Mr. Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison owns and is the CEO of Oracle. Good friend of Trump. Not that I like any American political parties. There's only one. But they all own. Ellison owns an entire island of Hawaii, Lanai, which he treats like a slave plantation for rich douchebags like himself. Mark Zuckerberg owns an entire freshwater reservoir, as our entire potable water supplies on Oahu are being threatened. And we're being charged $6 a gallon to buy non-PFAS filled cancer water. Areas of Honolulu, of Oahu, so when you go to Disney Aulani, they're not going to tell you that that when the 10,000 times higher than the PFAS acceptable level, which is 1 part per trillion, it's like nearly 1 part per trillion. Basically, any amount of PFAS is unacceptable, according to the EPA, which doesn't do its job, by the way. But Disney Aulani is located right next to where the PFAS has been spilling frequently. And in fact, there were 10,000 times, as I said, 10,000 times the toxic level of PFAS, forever chemical that causes cancer, was found right next to Disney Aulani. So get ready to come back with fun in the sun and a lot of cancer, diabetes, lymphoma, and other stuff. Not that I want anyone to go to Disney Aulani for reasons that we haven't even gotten to. But okay, so that's important for people to know. Okay, so U.S. occupied Hawaii is starting pack 20 to an apartment next to meth labs, paying $3,000 a month, getting raped by Americans in tacky hotels, especially by U.S. soldiers, and then be arrested for speaking your own language, dying in prison, or of diabetes at age 39. That the life expectancy in the area that I'm from is the age 39. It's like one of the lowest, if not the lowest, life expectancy in the United States. Right? Hawaii's not a state. It's a country illegally occupied by the United States. The United Nations has already made that clear. Even the United Nations, which is largely controlled by the United States, has had to admit that it's an illegal occupation. But the United States, again, right? It's a country that is the best at mass brainwashing to make people think whatever they want, basically. But so this is Native Hawaiians where we actually live, being arrested by cops for being homeless. Unfortunately, a lot of cops are Native Hawaiians. This is one of the horrible parts of colonization, is taking the colonized people, the indigenous people, bribing them with money to turn them against themselves, to police, beat up, and suppress their own people for a cut of the colonial plunder. And that's is so destructive, because that's a very key part of American genocide and crimes against humanity against Native Hawaiians, right? So when the United States commits human rights violations against Native Hawaiians, they use Native Hawaiians to do it a lot. So that it goes, well, you see, it was brown on brown crime. And also what it does is it makes, it's part of the forceful Americanization is to believe, right? Is to believe so much in that thin blue line. That's why Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is very important for the Asia Pacific, because Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, as a Samoan person, gives the Pacific Islanders that the United States needs military bases for to fight an unhinged war on China. Guam, Samoa, Hawaii, all over the Pacific. They need these bases, and they need Pacific Islanders to sign up for the military to go fight as cannon fodder, right? In Iraq, Afghanistan, right? Taika Waititi's family, even, fought in American wars, and he's not even in an American colony. It's an Anglo-Saxon one, but it's not an American colony. But so so that's a whole nother level of this problem. Is the overrepresentation of all indigenous and BIPOC peoples in the police and military after forceful brainwashing and forceful genocide by the colonizer. And then what they do is they pay you more money to be a cop or in the military, but then at the cost of basically your soul, and to kill and to recolonize other people for the empire. It's a Roman tactic. It's not really a new tactic, but the United States adds Mickey Mouse ears to the empire. Mickey Mouse ears were added to the centurion shields and lances. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, the important thing about this slide is that we're getting policed. We're getting killed. Bench warrant issued for Hawaiian professor after he refuses to speak Hawaiian to judge. So in 2018, a native Hawaiian college professor was arrested for speaking Hawaiian in a court. So that's the level of attack the United States enlists against us. This girl was told not to speak Hawaiian or she will be punished. This happened about a year ago in 2022. So this is 2022. There's an entire video and a discussion with the mom of the girl. The girl repeats again and again, they told me don't speak Hawaiian in class. Nothing happened to the teacher. Nothing happened to the principal. The United States is just in denial of this. That's why I keep putting it up there. People say, why do you keep putting that up there? And I say, well, if I find out that the United States is no longer punishing Hawaiian children for speaking Hawaiian in United States schools, I mean, public or private, doesn't really matter, but this is a public school just for your... People say, oh, that must be a private school. There must be some weird Republican private school. No, this is just a regular Democrat-run public school, son or daughter or non-binary person. She was going to a United States. Hawaii has 25 times more Democrat politicians and money. It's like 90+% Democrat. It's the most Democrat state. People are like, it must be a Republican trying to get... No, this is the Democrats doing it. So the Democrat is the most virulent party because it's the best at convincing people that they're good when they're doing evil things like this. So this child was told not to speak Hawaiian. Nothing has happened. The United States, like everything else, is just trying to bury it. This is not the school. This is the United States is covering this up. The United States is trying to wipe us out. The United States gives death to native peoples, like I said. And it gives soul death, it gives culture death, it gives language death, and it gives literal death. But this is the cultural death. This is why we need economic support, because Holly and I are taking a lot of time out of our lives to homeschool our own kids, in part because this could happen to our kids if we send them to any school in Hawaii. So we're opening your motherfucking wallet, colonizer, and fucking support us through Ko-Fi or Patreon. But anyways, so do they show that? I mean, I don't think Lilo and Stitch is going to go that hard. You know what I'm saying? Lilo and Stitch is better than Pocahontas probably, because at least there's some of the native Hawaiian perspective there. Like they talk to at least some Hawaiians, and Tia Carrera is I know the school where Tia Carrera went. I actually lived right next to the school that she went to preschool and kindergarten in. It's in Kalihi Valley, so she's part Filipino Hawaiian in Hawaii, and she voice acted Nani, if I'm not mistaken. And so at least some of that reality is at least in Lilo and Stitch, the first one, and how children get stolen from the parents, right, and taken, because that is, I mean, it's kind of like they don't necessarily go into all that, but the reason why the social worker is showing up for the Native Hawaiian child is because the United States is trying to take Native Hawaiian children from the parents so that they can try to eradicate Hawaiian culture, so that people like me don't exist anymore, right? And I don't fight against the U.S. empire, and we just let the U.S. military bomb everything and kill the world, right? I would like to have, if I'd rather not have any. I would rather have a Hawaiian funded and operated, produced, written, and acted production company with international backing. I don't want any Hollywood anything. I don't want Disney. This is the thing. Some people speak, well, what do you want? Do you want Disney characters to have less? Do you want just a Hawaiian Disney character that, you know, has darker skin, I mean, like, that's nice, but I don't want any Disney anything. I don't want Disney anywhere. You know, like, you know, this Disney can go dismantle itself, which it's doing, right? By doing bullshit like this. I don't want any Disney anything. What I would rather, ideally, we'd have like a sovereign country of Hawaii without the U.S. occupation poisoning and killing and genociding us. And then we would have Hawaiian owned, operated, sovereign economic companies under a national health, housing, etc. socialist country like we had before. Hawaiian values run country, which is our values were not capitalism, like in the 1800s, with Hawaiian sovereign, cooperative and or nationalized entertainment, film, and game production companies with international funding, not Western, that could put together Hawaiian stories of Pele, of stories of Kamapuaa. We have lots of amazing stories in Hawaii. None of them are ever going to get told because the United States hates Hawaiians and it doesn't care about our culture. The United States hates Hawaiians. Disney hates Hawaiians. Disney hates me. It hates who I actually am. Hollywood hates Hawaiians. That's why they don't tell any of our stories. I actually almost worked on a cyberpunk, imagine the Matrix crossed with like Coming to America, because it's all like a non-Western perspective. Cyberpunk, anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist movie game like franchise. We almost rolled it out here in Hawaii with like actual Hawaiian-led teams of, ex-Hollywood producers, people that actually worked on Coming to America. It was like when African people in Hollywood were like making more authentic movies at one point, and they kind of Hollywood said, the United States said, no, you can't do that anymore, and the United States said, you will not make any authentic Hawaiian anything, because this will disrupt our ability to maintain hegemony in the Pacific. If Hawaiians figure out who they are, partially through the entertainment, but also through their education, this will disrupt our ability to exercise global primacy as a capitalist superpower, as an empire. So the United States absolutely will never, I don't want justice from the United States. The United States is incapable of giving justice. I don't want I don't care about any Disney characters ultimately. I don't believe Disney will ever make anything worth watching, ever. Actually. The most authentic films and shows, I mean, is it better to have a slave? Would you, I mean, it's kind of like asking a Hawaiian, would you like to be known as a Hawaiian American or an Asian and Pacific Islander American? And I'm like, I'm not an American. Go watch the Hanani K. Trask video again. That's like when people ask, would you like this or that color? Do you want to know the real truth? I would like the United States to stop threatening to genocide my children like the United States genocided my mother by breaking her fucking hand and making me homeless for most of my adult working life and imprisoning all my fucking friends and family and poisoning my motherfucking water. I don't care about Disney. Anyways, so now I'm a full silver spook. So all these people, and also you shouldn't care that much. I mean, I don't invest that much into them because I know Disney's gonna make the wrong decision at the end of the day, and perpetuate the United States empire because that's who they work for. It's a giant fucking Fortune 500 empire. Where the mouse ears showed up around the world in the 20th century, it was the McDonald's arches and it was the mouse ears. It was Disney imperialism. Donald Duck. They brought Donald Duck to South America and to Africa and to everywhere else to manufacture consent for United States capitalist supremacy, leading this earth on the back of endless bloody wars, plunder, and subjugation after the end of World War II. So Disney has a deep, disgusting history. Is deeply connected to the empire, the United States, the reigning Western empire. So for that reason also, fuck that entire company and fuck its mouse ears. So I'm sorry if that makes you sad because you love all these Disney products. But I mean, that's just the truth. I mean, But again, I know I'll go back to the American land though, where everyone lives in perpetual disinformation. So, anyways, homeless youth on Oahu forced into survival sex. So this is the kind of place. This is where I worked as a Native Hawaiian, as a STEM teacher, social services worker, trying to help homeless children. That was my job for over a decade. I grew up in the U.S. ghetto of Hawaii. I grew up in literally the poorest area in the so-called United States. The ghettos of Honolulu, where everyone's freaking homeless. And I worked in the homeless village to try to help kids, get educated, have a surrogate parent when there's, kids sleep, like 1/3 or more of the kids that I work with in the STEM program, science, tech, engineering, and math, for at-risk and impoverished children. 1/3 of them were homeless, sometimes more than that. Like living in a tent like this, living in a van, of a variety of ethnicities, predominantly Pacific Islander, like Tongan, Laotian, Samoan. There were Chinese, Vietnamese, lots of Native Hawaiians, a few of them very poor white kids, like from like Detroit, and there were also African American kids, but majority of the people were Pacific Islanders because that's who was in the vicinity, and they were living in tents like that, and so. These are the problems that what kind of character shows up in a Disney movie that's not going to address this? It's the United States capitalist occupation, subjugation of our people, and turning our entire islands into a giant a giant real estate pyramid scheme for the richest billionaires and a U.S. military outpost. That's whatever kind of character shows up in a Disney movie. That's not going to alter this situation. So Neofeud is a game that I made about my experiences growing up in Hawaii's ghetto, being a teacher for poor, homeless refugees, mostly non-white kids in the slums of Hawaii's that the tour buses avoid. 100% of the sales of this game go to keeping a roof over our kids' head and educating the world. It is a science fiction or cyberpunk game because that's the kind of genre that I like. Also important is that Native Hawaiians, like all peoples, are not monoliths, and also we exist in the 21st century, and we don't exist as cute little people, cute little noble savages to do dances for you. Although we do dances, but actually the dances of hula is not a sexualized, idyllic postcard paradise, white sand beach, azure blue ocean vacation dance for rich tourists. That's not what hula was for. So when you're watching a hula, you're watching a fake. It's really a mass. Not you talk about cultural appropriation. Hula is cultural prostitution. Hula is it's like hula is like self disembowelment of your culture. It's like taking your culture and then dancing the most tacky knockoff ripoff version of it for leering rich white dudes who like are grabbing your butt for disrespectful people who are throwing cigarette butts at you and all over your beach while you work for starvation wages. It would actually be better to work at a McDonald's in a lot of ways than do hula, because at least like Mermaid, there's not an actual culture that McDonald's is effacing when it sells its tacky burgers with a hamburglar and a silly yellow and red and white clown man. You know what I'm saying? But when you buy a Hawaiian hula vacation product at the Polynesian Cultural Center, when you buy your Mai Tai with a Hawaiian umbrella and a blue Hawaii with all of your tacky tiki gods, tiki statues that are all amazingly offensive bastardizations of our actual carvings and sacred culture, right? It would be better to work at a McDonald's because at least you wouldn't be completely humiliating an entire nation and a culture. But that's when you come to Hawaii, so don't come to Hawaii. Lesson number 12. We don't need your tourism dollars. 75% of all Hawaiian businesses or more rely basically not at all on tourism. Agriculture, industrial. There's no economic argument that you help Hawaiians by coming to Hawaii for your tourism. No, you are participating in blackface, brownface level of racism. You are supporting the U.S. imperial occupation. 97% of every dollar goes straight to the richest billionaire conglomerates that don't come to us at all. You're supporting our own people taking part in our own destruction. So never come to Hawaii until the United States occupation is over and we have a socialist, authentic Hawaiian run country where the industries like tourism are by with our consent by our people that benefits us, like Cuba has. So you can go to Cuba because Cuba is a place that is 1,000 times more based, and Cuba is an example of a real human rights and democracy and freedom having country. You can go to Cuba and learn something, and you can not come to Hawaii. 2 tropical islands. One of them, actually has freedom and democracy, human rights. And the other one has your genocide. So, I hope you learned that. Anyways, Neofeud is a game. So, more on the history of the U.S. illegal occupation. But Neofeud is a game that, is, as I was saying, is a game that I made that's about all of these issues and problems that I've experienced. And as I was a social worker and a STEM teacher, the art stories and gameplay of Neofeud are a reflection of my experiences as a STEM teacher for underserved youth of Honolulu's inner city, teaching robotics, programming, and sustainability as an often difficult, stressful, even Kafka-esque endeavor in the sense of being like nightmarishly terrible, being in one of the richest, most beautiful places on earth, yet dealing with families with working parents, living out of a van or sleeping on the street, trying to keep kids out of gangs, off drugs, on paths towards better opportunities like the ones that I had growing up in the slum area of Paradise while going to an upscale private school, only because my father taught there. We couldn't afford it. I made Neofeud to be a fun and engaging time in a game in and of itself, but I also want the player to think about the society in which we live as well as the one which we may be heading toward if nothing is done. And so, there's robots and there's, science fictional characters and there's like, half human, half animal characters that are like stand-ins because it's hard to talk about these topics to Western audiences for reasons I've already elucidated, I think, right? That there's a lot of incorrect information. I'm going to go back to being polite, Spook. There's a lot of incorrect information that is in the minds and in the understandings of people in the Western world, in the United States. And so that's why that's part of why Neofeud is the way it is. Because I actually thought about calling it Dystopian Hawaii, but I don't think anybody would buy it. So it's like I could be more direct about it, but it is what. And also I'm a fan of science fiction and cyberpunk, so there's also that. But it is ultimately about the real experiences, as well as being speculative fiction in its own right. But anyways, and a video game, and so that's why and it does every sale of it. I did spend about 2.5 years making that game while homeless for parts of it with my family, and it does help to keep a roof over our kids' head. We have, as I said, we've been homeless Hawaiians in Hawaii because of the U.S. occupation. Because before the U.S. occupation, there basically weren't homeless people. Certainly not working ones who are working full time. And so if you are an American, you actually do owe us. And if you get Neofeud or support us through Patreon and Ko-Fi, you're giving 1,000 times more support to Hawaiians than any amount of vacation dollars you could ever spend. Or you don't have to even give it to just me. You can give it to any of the other organizations. And there are links that Holly has, I'm sure. Oahu Water Protectors, Moonkind Things. Purple Maya has like a list of actual Native Hawaiian organizations and movements and et cetera to support. But that's more than any. If you fly to Hawaii for a vacation, you are a colonizer and you are a selfish person who is harming more than helping Native Hawaiian people. Because so what you have 2 choices. You can stop listening to me and be a selfish, ignorant, go back into the Matrix with Cypher and just be terrible, or you can now that you've heard this, right? So if you didn't want to hear it, then I'm sorry, but not sorry. Or you can like listen to what Indigenous people are saying, listen to what Native people are saying, listen to what Native Hawaiians are saying, and respect our wishes and our consent, right? It's interesting how a lot of people like they say, "Oh, I understand consent is like when you ask someone if they want to have sex. If they say no, and if they say without an enthusiastic yes, if they say no, it's called rape. But when Indigenous people and entire countries of people and their land and the territories are being destroyed, and they say no, it's okay to engage in rape. It's interesting that's the American way though. That's the Western way. It's like figure out a way to justify forced plunder, stealing, and harming and rape, literal rape as well, of a population. That's how the American military rapes in the Asia Pacific all the time. 25% of the entire population of Korea was turned into a rape industry for American soldiers. And then they came back and they just like justified it to themselves. Well, we were saving Korea from communism, so it was okay that I raped all those Korean ladies. And they're helping Japan airbrush their horrible crimes in that way. So you have an option. So you can double down like all the idiots in the replies on the Lilo and Stitch thread, or you can quadruple down on that, or you can listen to what I'm saying, and you don't have to do what I'm asking because I said so. You can go confirm from other Native Hawaiians. I mean, don't ask some paid shill. Like, look at the ones that are in the movement. Look at history, right? Not from a Western perspective, but from the global majority or the colonized world's perspective, and support the actual peoples in our actual struggles. Not support your own luxury vacation that's a selfish thing you want, and then try to justify that by looking at some American propaganda about how awesome it is for Hawaiians to be part of America. Okay, so that's gonna be a hard process for a lot of Americans. I'm not pretending like it's easy. It wasn't easy for me to de-Americanize to undo the American brainwashing, because I was trained to be a Goldman Sachs high frequency trading algorithm programmer at a very prestigious Ivy League college, or I was supposed to go to one of those. My parents and the school counselor, the college prep school counselor was very disappointed that I didn't get into Yale or Harvard, because that's like where everyone's supposed to go. And I was like, well, that's kind of expensive. And also, like, I don't really know if I want to be around a bunch of spoiled emerald mind babies like Elon and Mark Zuckerberg at your shitty school. But anyway, so more on this history of illegal. It's already one, so let's get out of here. So I could go on. I frequently talk about this stuff forever, so I should probably end it soon. But I have threads within threads within. If you want to know, like, Silver Spook, I don't know if I believe what you're saying. Well, I mean, you can go find any one of the threads within threads within threads that I have. There are literally over 1,000 hours of video, as well as a lot of other text, and there are lots of. I'm not the only source. I mean, I'm just forwarding a lot of lesser known indigenous and non-Western sources of information to the rest of the world, and you can find those over here. Anyways, on my Twitter account if you want to follow those. And so, is there anything else that I wanted to say? So Lilo and Stitch, colorism, and so you want the real full, like I call it the DEFCON 15 Silver Spook perspective. That's it. Okay, but ultimately, colorism is not a good thing. It has historical reality to it, and it doesn't mean that this movie is gonna necessarily be bad. It doesn't mean that like Sydney Agudong is not a good person. She's just trying to get work, and it's a world where you got to work. And then, so it's not, and she is she is a person that is of Native Hawaiian ancestry, was, raised in Hawaii, and so please do not accuse her of not being a Native Hawaiian. I am also, I have Kake, I have German, Irish, Scottish, Japanese, distantly some Choctaw indigenous heritage, but I'm not connected to that culture, not practicing it, and also Native Hawaiian. I have like a whole variety of different ancestors, let's say, right? Because we don't go by blood quantum, but that's not what makes you ultimately a member of the nation of Hawaii. It is so we don't want to be attacking people because they have some Euro ancestry. Now, she is fairer skinned. That's not her fault, right? Because some people are like, well, they're just mad that she's, she is a fairer skinned Native Hawaiian person. She is a fairer skinned Hawaiian person. Like, my daughter is and son. They're relative to all Hawaiians. They are fairer skinned Hawaiian children. That does not make them not Hawaiian, right? So, obviously there's also, that's also personal, right? So anyway, I just want to make that one clear, because it's not meant to be an attack on her specifically. You can be so fair skin, So that's the colorism. Um, Lilo and Stitch is a better Disney movie, but again, like I already said, it's a massive. Disney is a massive. It's capitalist. It's already a problem for me. As a Native Hawaiians, we're like not the biggest on capitalism, and Silver Spoon Cooperative is a non-capitalist worker-owned cooperative of myself, Holly, and the two mini members that are the kids in a in Hawaiians we would call it a hui, or basically people working together collectively in a project. And so our project is education. It is things like these streams and videos. It is making games, but it's not. It that we don't have a handful of people who have money that are benefiting at the exploitation of the labor of a mass number of people, in a non-democratic way, which is what Disney is. It's a capitalist corporation with an authoritarian regime led by the CEO, the CFO, the C-suite, with the board of directors that are selected based on a tiny minority of the richest people in the world, the shareholders who are the 90+% of them millionaires and billionaires. So that's a capitalist plutocratic system that the West and the United States have. So for that reason, Disney, I'm like not big on Disney. Number two, and there's lots of companies that are like that. That's the problem. But number two, Disney is also a U.S. imperial propaganda organization. You know, it has purposes, as I've already said, beyond simply making money selling a product. It has soft power implications for maintaining U.S. empire, which is a thing that is crushing us. So for that reason, you know, if Disney makes a nicer movie, that's having like a nicer murderer that gives you flowers before killing you. So I don't really want. I mean, if they give, it's like the Democratic Party is more efficient at murder, genocide, and evil because it gives you a hug and it stabs you in the back. The Republicans hold a knife out to your front and they say, we're just going to get rid of all the indigenous and trans people. Right? It's a very inefficient way to get rid of them a lot of the time. Not all the time, but a lot of the time, right? And so people can defend themselves, right? Even South and Central Americans are like, they prefer the Republicans because at least Nixon would come down and just be like, yeah, we're going to kill you and we're going to take all your stuff. So get ready for that. And they'd be like, well, we're going to get ready for that then. But the Democrats, what they do is they give you a hug and they say, we love black people. And then they kill all the black people in all the cities that they run. Like 90% of all non-white and African people live in deep blue Democrat-run cities that mass incarcerate and imprison them all. And they send them to a red state, but they're arrested and incarcerated and judged by a judge in a blue Democratic place. So I don't want a nicer, more loving Disney, which is run by mostly Democrat liberal money, for the U.S. empire. I don't want a nicer Disney, actually. Don't really care. If they're going to make a movie, I would prefer less colorism and less racism, but I'm not going to invest a lot of energy in that, you know, because it's not efficient. It doesn't seem like a very efficient thing for me to do. I would do invested energy in like, if a million of you are going to talk about this thing now on Twitter and you're going to look, because the post that I made had 1 million views. I'm like, I can't stop disinformed Western people from being disinformed all over the place. So, I mean, if you know, it's like, this is what I really want people to see. Right? There's less people have seen that, but I mean, if people are going to be talking and replying and commenting, and 1.2 million people, or what is it? 1.2 freaking million people, over 1 million people are going to be talking about why isn't she lighter, or why isn't she darker, you know, or what, or is it, what is it, you know, if that's what y'all disinformed Westerners are going to be talking about, colonizers are going to be talking about, of whatever skin tone, then I want to use that to talk about what I actually want to get out there, you know, which is that. But I'm not going to invest like a ton of my life energy, because it's not efficient, into fighting to get one Disney character, you know, a few tones darker, or to get it made at all. Ideally, you know what I would really like is, I don't want Disney making any movies about Hawaii. They're making a Moana movie with Dwayne. I love the military Republican. I love American cops. I'm in a beef with Vin Diesel because Vin Diesel is based in internationalist and like is making a movie and thanking China and shit. I don't want a Moana movie. I don't want a Lilo and Stitch movie. I don't want Disney making anything about Hawaii. Anything that they do is going to be making mountains of money off our back, making America look good, like it cares about Hawaiians, which justifies more brainwashing for more Americans to sign up for the military and blow our entire island up, all of our islands up, and keep subjugating us. I don't want any Disney anything ever. You know what I'm saying? That's really, I hope that, so that's kind of, I'm a little bit irritated, actually. It's actually very frustrating. It's like, I spent like 30 seconds putting a tweet together, and then there's 1.2 million people look at it, and they're all talking, mostly bullshit about it. Like, oh, she's not even white. The mermaid was black, and then the mermaid was white, now it's black. But when you have the black, the black island girl becomes white, you're mad. Oh, you're racist against white people. Bullshit, disinformed bullshit all motherfucking day. I'm like, God damn it. But it's like, if you all are going to talk about that, then let's try to educate. Maybe like 1% or 10% of you may learn something and not just open your mouth and run it all over the internet without investigating. But, and some people are going to like, well, Silver Spook, those are just a minority of people that are disinformed, and that's just some trolls. There are some, but that's the reality is that no, most people in the United States are disinformed, Like, offline, it could be even worse. They might just be straight up fascists marching down the street trying to eradicate trans people. It doesn't get better because it's offline. This is a deep, deep problem. I don't really know what to do about it fully. But what I do know is that social media can be a force for helping people to get educated. A lot of times, actually, the other TikTok, and it's funnily enough, sometimes TikTok and Instagram can be better with this because... and parts of Twitter, can be better, and it is where a lot of people are, so that's where we have to go, to try to reach some people, but yeah. Anyway, so I always want to reiterate that, like, that's why in my thread, number one is not like I would like the Disney character to look different, right? Number one. Disney stopped displacing us homeless Hawaiians with a $144 million resort for rich foreigners at Disney Aulani, 21-acre mega resort in collaboration with the illegal U.S. occupation that is poisoning our water. Like I already said, tourism harms massively us, so Disney is massively harming us directly with that resort. So Disney, pull your resort out of Hawaii. How about that? Right? Cast whoever you want for your Lilo and Stitch. If you pull your resort out of Hawaii and stop sponsoring our ongoing destruction. Number two, Disney's not going to do that because Disney is a soulless, vapid United States genocide factory backer. The illegal U.S. occupation that is poisoning our water. Also, that's blatant colorism. So, and at the end, it's also blatant colorism. I see all the Disney fans left because they're like, I love Disney though. I'm not saying you can't. I'm not even saying you can't watch a Disney movie. I'm just saying you have to realize this is the reality. Okay. And particularly if United States is struggling because Hawaii is the Hawaiian and indigenous peoples and our movements, and globally we're getting more traction. In part because I do shit like this, I do stuff like this, and I tweet and I try to spread the word. And lots of other people do lots of other things, in person, out of person, in directly at the Capitol, at the U.S. military bases, right? And all of that together is making momentum as the U.S. is getting worse and worse and falling apart. The U.S. empire is crumbling so fast. It's not even really like anyone's going to stop America from doing things. America is going to implode. It's like, I don't even know if you're going to be able to keep any military bases up at the rate that it's going. Losing wars left and right. You can't even keep your trains on the tracks. You have 11-year-olds being forced to work in your steel plants and in your jam factories because you killed everyone with COVID and not paying anyone enough. You're losing all your colonies that you sucked the world's resources into to have your little Disney America for the last 80 years. Well, Disney America is over. The mouse ear happy time, leave it to Beaver, happiest place on earth is done. The United States is finished. So Disney is making these movies about Hawaii because Hawaii is sensitive to the U.S.'s attempt to disrupt the global multipolar world. And so I think that's actually a reason why Moana and Lilo and Stitch are coming out now, because the United States wants to try to re-solidify, like it cares about Hawaiians, like it loves Hawaii so much, to try to calm Hawaiians down and stop us from taking actions we need to take to save our islands, so that the U.S. can maintain the Indo-Pacific Command Pearl Harbor, the literal headquarters of world empire, and the 250 million gallon refueling station for all of America's Navy, Air Force that are going to be trying to fight proxy wars in Taiwan, South China Sea, etc. South Korea, Japan, if they can get them. So that's why the United States, I think, is a big reason why the U.S. empire, the ruling class of the West, is making these movies, is to try to calm. They're doing a really bad job because obviously you're pissing a lot of people off. But they're trying to make it seem like the United States cares about Hawaiians. Look, we're making all these nice movies with your nice Hawaiian characters in them. So I'm here to say I don't fuck all your imperialist movies, and especially Avengers. I got 75 hours of billionaire philanthropist, arms dealer, playboy, a Captain Star Spangled Underpants criticism of the U.S. imperialist propaganda that is all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, also owned by Disney. So I come by this honestly. Anyways, I come on my anti-Disney stance. Honestly, Big Tail knows. Big Tail's been in there for a lot of those. Anyways, we should probably go. So let's finish up by just let me just shout out a few people. So like as I said, this is another Native Hawaiian that is confirming what I'm saying. I'm not, they don't have to all agree every 100%. I know not all of them agree 100% with everything I said, but this is another Hawaiian person that's saying, Celeste Noelani McLean this is the correct order of things pissing us off about the Disney remake. We have nothing but aloha for all Kanaka involved with the project. Disney is a POS, agent of destruction, and they need to quit resource extracting our culture and people. One more thing, I just thought of this. I just want to say it. Another aspect of colorism is that it can make you think that, if you to be Hawaiian, you have to be this certain color, which can be problematic for fairer skin Kanaka Maoli or fairer skin Native Hawaiian people, right? Like I think is it Anuhea? So this person, Anuhea Nihipali, is a Kanaka Oiwi Native Hawaiian person who is also like a very light skin tone, like has freckles and stuff. But that does not make you not a Native Hawaiian, like I've said several times, right? So colorism has a kind of this other effect where it's like people that are of a lighter skin tone can be thought of as, you can't be that ethnicity. You can't be that ethnicity because of your skin tone. And it's like, no, that's not how it works, right? That I'm a fair skinned Native person. So anyway, that's another, important like distinction. I forgot why I didn't. Maybe I did mention it. I just forgot. But yeah. So that's okay. So yeah. So like a lot of this has to be. It's very nuanced things where it's like all of these problems exist simultaneously, and they're all very complicated. Even inside of nations, they're complicated, right? But and so but the Western viewpoint likes to kind of pigeonhole all of the Black community is over here, and they think that, and the Indigenous community is here, and all Native Americans, they're all there, and they all think that, and then that's white supremacy, and that's white centrism, Eurocentrism. And so learning about colorism, it is kind of complicated. It's not simple, right? Because you have all these different, they have historical realities, and but part of like if you want to support an actual world without prejudice, racism, human rights, freedom, and all these so-called values that the Western world claims to have, you have to try to learn these things. And like don't demand. People up in my thread being like, what is colorism? Explain it to me. Like, please don't demand education from the people that you're oppressing. White person. But like, I mean, if you can Google a thing, try Googling it, and it's kind of like, also, you want me to explain something to you personally? I got 1 million people I could be reaching with 30 seconds. I could reach 1.2 million people, and you want me to personally spend 5 minutes of my life on you? You're not worth it. Bob 3652. with a American flag in bio. Like American flag in bio, it's like, oh, done already. Like, NATO flag in bio. What, blue yellow flag in bio? Like, don't you know that that's a Nazi fucking flag? I mean, it's like you have the black sun right under that. So anyways, yeah. There's like a whole lot I could probably go into. I'm not gonna go into all of it, but yeah, that's another part one, and yeah, I should just end because there's an infinite. Like I said, I'm never gonna get to all of the discussion and all the replies. I'm trying to do like a blanket response to everything regarding Lilo and Stitch and Nani and Disney's live action adaptation. So let's just finish there. I mean, this is not really a game stream, but if you do like adventure games and cyberpunk games for some reason, Neofeud is a game that does support everything that we do here. It is a cyberpunk adventure game that I spent about 2.5 years making. Ultimately, it does talk about the problems of social, economic, political inequality, and also it is ultimately from my native Hawaiian experience under U.S. capitalist occupation and subjugation. So if you would like to play a fun game with hippie Terminators and robot funny dudes, but that also addresses genocide through social services as well as police and military industrial complex, consider picking up this game. If you've got to play Neofeud and you have a second to leave even a very short review, it does increase the likelihood that our game will be discovered or in the Steam algorithm. Like it's like engagement, like a comment on YouTube or a like or a reply on a tweet. So please consider leaving a review if you liked it, even something very short, because it does like help us get the game recognized. You can also find it on itch.io for Windows, Mac, and Linux, and it's also for maximum revenue comes to us when you get games through itch.io. You can also get games like Pigeon with Gun, where you play a robot, you play a bird with a gun fighting a giant robot gajillionaires, liberal, heart-stealing politicians, and it's like a retro comedy game that I made about 6 months ago. But anyways, but if you don't like, we also have if you're like I'm here for the anti-colonization. This is a game where you literally fight colonizers out of your sovereign country. And you do like full on land back. You know what I'm saying? You ever wanted to just do full on land back in an entire country and lose your entire voice right when you're trying to support your Vietnamese comrades? You can't do the last thing, but you can get decolonizers and you can kick capitalist colonizers' butts in a video game. Woman is also a book by Holly that is my partner, who has been doing a great job moderating, as always. Holly was raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity and wrote this book about being raised in such a world from that perspective. And the book is free, or you can throw some money our way. As always, if you appreciate the education, don't forget to or you can join the Patreon at patreon.com/Neofeud. Where you get behind the scenes work on what we're doing, both at the Silver Spook Hui or the Silver Spook Cooperative, as well as the game stuff that we're working on. You also get the Silver Spook University. As I said, over 1,000 hours of my content, video, and also threads and text education categorized by topic. Also, you get the access to the Silver Spook Discord, and also you get to support Native Hawaiians you get to actually support Native Hawaiians, unlike when you go on vacation in Hawaii, which doesn't support us and in fact hurts us. So become a Silver Spook Patreon. Don't go on Hawaii vacation. That should be like a slogan or something. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, so you can also follow at Silver Spook Games at octanon.social, at Silver Spook Games at mastodon.social on Mastodon. Obviously, I've been staring at my Twitter for a long time, so at Silver Spook Guy, if you didn't see that, and also at Silver Spook Games for the game stuff, Facebook, Instagram, and there's also Terminus C is another game that I'm working on. If you like if you like retro 90s games and cyberpunk, this is a game that I'm the content director and lead writer of. It is set in the universe of Neofeud and Neofeud 2, so technically this is all from a Hawaiian perspective because I wrote and content directed this game as well. And it is coming sometime in the near future, so you can follow at Terminus C. Join their Discord if you want to do that. And also, don't forget, you can thanks. Oh, I should not forget to thank all these people for their support. Thanks to Comrade Rooster for shouting out when I say stuff. Comrade Rooster is always my favorite hype bird. You know what I'm saying? Comrade Rooster is always there. You know, Comrade Rooster is always there. Unlike the U.S. military that pulls out as soon as they can't make any more money stealing your resources. Comrade Rooster is always there. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, okay. So until next time, keep your hula cellophane plastic hula skirt. Well, just don't keep it. Be excellent to each other, and we'll be back for hanging out on Twitch around between 8 and 9 Pacific time. Okay, and thanks a lot, Big Teal and Victor. Thanks to see both. Always good to see both of you.